Elevation Nation. As Parker likes to say, we have on a very special guest to Elevation Nation. It's really cool when we get to meet people. Again, elevators, introducing us to other elevators. Shout out Aomi for the connection here. But what's even cooler is when we get to meet someone who actually has been in our shoes and in our footsteps and taken it to the next level. The elevator that we're having on today, Aaron Chasan, he was at our company for a long time. He was in Big Four Consulting. He found a problem, identified it, found some inspiration, solved it, and now started his own company. Sound a little familiar to what Parker and I are trying to do? We're going to get all into that in a bit with Aaron, but it's such an honor and a privilege to have you on the podcast and to welcome you as our latest elevator 142, I believe, to the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm stoked to be here.
Aaron, I'm pumped. I'm pumped for this conversation. You know, Paz guy. I guess you're always a Paz guy, even though you don't work in the corporate world anymore. So first of all, right off the bat, I'm pumped. Second of all, I'm pumped about what you're doing with Thread and getting into all of that. And even more so, the mindset that you have to quit your job, to go all in on something that you truly believe in is what inspires me and gets me going the most. So I'm really pumped for this conversation. But first, before we get into
Parker,
it...
I just got to say, though, you said Paz as if it's like this fraternity, this elite gang that you both are in.
I mean, I guess you could make it, like, I wouldn't call it a fraternity.
Did you get it tattooed on yourself somewhere or something?
It's a three-letter organization.
It is not a three-letter organization. Okay, People Advisory Services. People, right? All right, well, before we get into it, Aaron, it is Elevation Nation, pun intended. You got to start out with an elevator pitch. I'm sure you've been doing and honing in on your elevator pitch for your business a lot recently, but let's hear the Aaron Chasan elevator pitch.
So am I pitching myself? Okay.
Yeah. Who are you? Tell us who you are.
All right. Okay. I'm Aaron Chasan. I went to Vanderbilt for undergrad and then joined IBM for a quick stint and then went to EY in People Advisory Services after that. Spent a few years doing consulting and kind of realized that I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and there's a cool problem for me to solve in people being lonely at work and having a really big impact on their work and on whether they stay at a company. And so I created Thread to solve for that and connect coworkers based on shared interests.
And at a time when I think loneliness in both the workplace, outside of the workplace, we had this thing called a pandemic hit where people weren't leaving their homes, their rooms, their apartments. Work from home now is a normal thing. As you can see, I'm at my desk. I don't really go to an office anymore. So not only did you have some more time, Aaron, to work on this idea, but it was very timely as well. This isn't a new problem, but I think I would have to guess that you have some statistics that this problem amplified significantly during the pandemic. Is that correct?
Yeah. It's definitely not a new problem, but it is like more severe of a problem than it has ever been before. Like people are lonelier than they've ever been. And it's having a pretty adverse impact on folks' mental health, obviously. And that also has a really big impact on what happens at work. If you're isolated, then you're much less likely to stay. You're a lot more likely to call in sick when you're not. You're a lot less likely to, be able to get your work done. You don't get promoted as much. So there's a ton of information about the impact of loneliness and of connection. And right now it's, more prevalent than it's ever been. How many friends at work have you made in the past 3 years?
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
It's a tough question. And I think there's also I have people who I love absolutely at work. I don't know if I'd consider them friends. There's people I really enjoy working with, but we don't talk too much about things outside of work, and I'm pretty outgoing. So I agree. I think this issue is one that has plagued us for a while. I think it's been amplified, and I think it will continue to probably grow. Even if we're coming back into the office, it's still tough. So I'm glad someone's solving it. I know Parker's excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, totally. I think like to build like a meaningful connection, like we saw it with that whole year of pandemic, like you got to be in person and you got to be able to understand and be with people rather than like if I meet someone virtually for the first time, it's hard to be able to connect with them, know what's they're about because typically I'm meeting them through like a 50-minute Zoom call to discuss a specific business thing, right? And like we're not even getting to the point. We're jumping right into it. Oftentimes we spend like 2-3 minutes, hey, what are you up to? What you're about? And then we get right into it. Rather than if we were in person, you're probably going to walk in together, grab a cup of coffee, learn a little bit more. Maybe, hey, what are you doing after? Oh, I'm doing this. Oh, I'm actually interested in that. You know, things happen naturally. But to Sam's point, he works from home every day. I work from home 65% of the time. You got to make a really big effort to meet new people. And that's why I love what you're doing, Aaron. I think it's so cool.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I noticed when I was at UI during the pandemic, so I left in 2021 and started in 2017 or 2018. I noticed that like people were joining meetings and just kind of like going camera off, like mute themselves and just hanging out until the meeting starts. Like, you don't get to do that in person. You know, like when you when you join a meeting like in person, you like have to engage with the other person and talk to them. And so people are like just making fewer and fewer connections and giving them some structure. I think is important. So that's what we're trying to do.
So let's talk
Have you
about
guys-
the.
I had a funny TikTok I wanted to share. I don't know if you guys are like Aomi on TikTok, but she certainly rubbed off on me, and I've been scrolling TikTok more than I probably should. There's this guy, I don't know if you guys have seen it. He reenacts what like typical meetings are, and he has like a checklist on the left side of his head, and he goes one by one down. He's like, hey, how was your weekend? All right. Did you have a nice break? Happy New Year. What did you do? Time with the family? Oh, amazing. It's like so predictable. How many of my calls did I have yesterday when we came back that I was like, and it's not that I'm not genuinely interested, but you only have 30 minutes. You're trying to get into your meeting. How was your break? Oh, mine was great. Where were you? I was with my parents. How wonderful. Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Move on. It's like, you didn't learn
So
anything about me. Yeah, you don't know what's going on in my life. And so I just wanted to bring that up. If you haven't seen those TikToks, probably they're listening.
That's amazing.
So you'll
I
hear
was
them
on
now.
TikTok before Aomi was.
Damn.
But I have since deleted the app because of an unhealthy addiction to it.
Fair enough. I get it.
It's
Sorry
an
to cut you off,
addicting app.
Parker.
Like they know what they created. They created an animal, and everyone's addicted. If you're on it, some people aren't. I don't know. Gotta hold yourself accountable. Put that damn phone thing down to meet more people. So let's talk about meeting people and what you've built with Thread, Aaron. How are you helping make these connections through what you're building?
Yeah. So the way we do it is by asking people what they're like really into, like their interests and their hobbies. And then we create connections based on shared interests. So we figure out the people at a company who are most likely to get along and have like a really meaningful conversation. And then we introduce those two.
What would be some examples of some of those shared interests that you try to uncover?
Yeah. I'm actually embarrassed that I didn't include this in my elevator pitch. Like one of my things is like I think everyone should be talking about their like personal interests like at work and like just all the time, because it's just such an easier like way to bond with people than where did you go over the holidays. So like for me, I'm really into snow skiing and board games, like road trips. I like Parker. You're also a board gamer.
No, I'm going to Park City on Friday to snowboard for a full week. Sam's heard all about it for the last time. So pumped. Board games are cool. I like board games.
That's sweet. I'm going to
Wow.
So stoked.
Wow.
So yeah, those are the type of things that we would connect people on. So you like the survey goes through this flow of like asking you like generally what are you into? So like do you like music? Do you like books? And then it drills down. It's like, what kind of music, what kind of books, what kind of like outdoor rec sports? And then it will have you like pick the things that are most important to you. And if you and I both have like a top 3 interest in common, then it's pretty likely that the algorithm will like think we're compatible enough and introduce us.
And so when you're introduced to this new person, is there any training that you need to do to make people less awkward? Like, hey, we know you're colleagues, but like you're allowed to talk about things you care about outside of work, because there is that weird stigma in the corporate world that's like, maybe like you shouldn't talk about your love for Star Wars. Like maybe that's not professional. I'm doing air quotes for people who are listening. Like I disagree with it, but I know that there is that stigma. How have you battled that, Aaron?
Yeah, people are actually like quite good at it. Like the disarming is already done, because it's like if I'm really into like Arduino and I'm kind of embarrassed about that because it's a super specific like nerdy hobby, and then I meet someone else and I know that they're also into Arduino, like I don't have to worry about like putting myself out there as much because it's already done. And we've played around with like different formats for the meeting, like do we give them trivia questions about their shared interest, or do you give them like a specific like conversation prompt about their interest? And those have been cool, but for the most part our feedback has been like, thanks, but honestly all I needed to know was the shared interest and then I'm good.
So it's nice to hear that humans can still be humans. That's
Yeah, I mean,
reassuring.
some of
I
them.
wasn't sure for a while.
There's also feedback that says like, that person kind of just sucked, honestly. So like we didn't really get along, which is just a bit of randomness that we can't control for. But for the most part, people are like cool and genuine and, excited to talk about this stuff.
So this is me putting my people advisory services 9 to 5 grind hat on, and I'm curious what you think about this, Aaron. So like, there's like a philosophical discussion that I've had with some people over the last couple of years. Like, what's the role of a company in providing things like Thread or providing access to certain resources that are outside the current day-to-day of what the business is supposed to produce? And like, what's the role in the business to be able to do those things, like make social connections, this and that? I'm really curious, like, what is the selling point that you make to businesses about why this is so important and how it actually can improve their ROI on their investment with Thread, but then also their employee morale, and how there's a straight like correlation in between more productivity at work, whatever it might be, with morale.
Yeah. The big thing that we focus on is turnover. But there's a ton of data about not just turnover, but also like absenteeism and productivity and performance, and the connection that those have to connectivity. So the big one that we talk about is if you have people who are isolated, they tend to stay at the company for significantly less long. They tend to have a lot higher of like, or a lot lower of an intent to stay. And so that like makes a lot of sense to me. Like if I don't have any friends at the company, then like one of two things might happen. It might be like, I hate it here. This like, it sucks. I don't have any friends. I'm out of here. Or what's like a little bit more likely is it's fine. It's a job. But if Deloitte comes and offers me the exact same job that I have at EY in their human capital practice when I was in people advisory services for $5K more, then yeah, I don't have any friends keeping me here. There's no like opportunity cost to leave. So I'll take that. But if you have like a huge network, it's like, I don't need that like small amount of money. It's not worth the like building of my entire, social circle again. So that's the big thing that we focus on. And
That's
there's a lot
such
of
a
good
good
research
point.
on like, yeah, thanks. There's a lot of research on the like incremental value of like adding a friend. So like we can show that by creating this like successful connection, the expected chance of them turning over has been decreased by X%, which you can connect to the cost per separation and ROI that way.
Damn, so it sounds like you got it down to a pat. Like the
I mean, I was a
question,
consultant
answer,
too.
like you're not in Seattle for nothing, is what you're saying here. I love
Yeah, I
it. I think
mean,
it's awesome.
came from Paz. I had to have a good answer to that. Like that was what I
Yeah.
built it, being like, I need to be able to prove that this works.
Interesting. All right, so let's talk through that a little bit more. Like, tell us how you're creating. Like, can you give us examples of like
Yeah.
real examples of like stories you've heard of two people who have like been connected and now are like best friends? That'd be amazing to
Ooh,
hear.
that's fun. Um, I should reach back out to people who used it a while ago, because all of the interviews that I've done have been like pretty shortly after the connection, and they've been like the good ones are like, that was amazing, like I'm so excited to keep in touch. But candidly, I haven't like been like, hey, you guys best friends, like so I don't have any of those super wholesome stories for you. But I did meet somebody, or like interview one of the employees at a company who got connected with someone because they were both really into climbing and skiing and mountain biking. They were just like the mountain guys, and they had plans to go climbing together. And I was super excited about that. I feel like if you actually have like plans to hang out, like that's huge. That's like a real friendship, or like at least the start of one. So I'm curious how that friendship blossomed.
I want to ask you, Aaron. Maybe this is confidential, sorry. But what's the craziest, most unique combined hobby that you were able to connect people? Like underwater basket weaving, or what do you got for us?
Underwater basket weaving is classic. Oh, I was just looking at this company that we were working with, and I noticed somebody had the most bizarre combination of interest. Let me see if I can remember. Um, it was like it was like heavy metal and something like way more gentle than that, like keto or like meditation or something. I don't remember, but um, yeah, people have these like crazy combinations of interests. I wish I could specifically remember. I'll go digging.
We'll have to find some for some data points for the
Yeah.
podcast. But I mean, it's we have a cool thing in my design studio where every Friday someone's able to share something that they're passionate about. And listen, anyone from the studio listening to this, I love you all, but they're way cooler and more creative than me. And so people have done, show and tells on, like, I played sports. I'm obviously not cultured, I guess. Some of the most insane topics I've ever heard of. Someone like paints these beautiful action figures and they're like microscopic. Like the brush he uses is like so small. Some people are like making their own types of food every morning. Like it's just impressive. Some of the hobbies that people have. And to your point, we don't have natural ways and we're not encouraging them to really bring those to fruition. It's pretty hard to make those genuine connections and see someone as more than just this little box on a screen that you have meetings with.
Yeah, for sure.
So, to continue with the talk on connectivity, I mean, Aaron, you're starting a company. I started. I mean, you're well into this now at this point. Like, that could probably be lonely at times, right? How are you staying connected to other people? Are you using your app and getting other people on? Like, what are you doing here?
I'm living called out right now. The irony of like going off and working by myself to start a connectivity company is not lost on me. Um, I mean, definitely was lonely. I now have a
That's
co
awesome.
so I have
Okay, good.
one
All right.
person, and we have a lot in common. We started talking about Thread when we were skiing, like on the chairlift. Uh, so we've got a top three shared interest. That's great. Um, but in terms of like how I'm staying connected to people, like I don't know, I've just got to like live by it in my personal life and talk about my personal interest and ask people like what they're into. Um, I just moved to Seattle like a year ago. I guess it's been a minute now, but um, I do remember like feeling like I should lean into my interest to like bond with people quickly, like find out what they like. I know like the buckets of interests now. Like I can ask a lot of good questions. So definitely using that. But unfortunately, for now, Thread is too small of a company to actually use Thread's product because it would just be matching two people together over and over again.
Love it.
Well, listen, Elevation Nation would love to beta test for you, and I can see what interest Parker has, and Parker can see mine. So
What about all
Sounds
of our
good.
elevators?
and all our elevators. That would be
be
cool. Actually,
sweet.
that would be cool.
That would
we
be
gotta
cool.
I
talk,
mean, we
Aaron.
kind of know like a lot of our elevators are entrepreneurs.
Yeah, that would be a
Maybe
big one.
they're musicians, they're artists, they're athletes, but beyond that, like Sam knows,
That's cool.
you know, I'm a runner. I like to snowboard. I like to read. What else do I like to do, Sam? That, you know, maybe the
Well,
audience won't know.
God knows you talk a lot into a microphone, but I think we both do that. So
I feel like that's
we have that
assumed,
shared
right?
interest. Yeah,
We definitely do. Maybe that's why we like each other so much.
I guess
It'd be
so.
cool to build the network graph of your elevators too. Like you could see
I would
who
love
which
that.
elevators are connected. Like obviously Aomi and I are connected, but we also realized like right before this that Brian and I are connected. That'd be so fun to see.
We've talked about that before, Sam.
I actually I think I'd be overwhelmed because there is so much overlap with all our elevators now, and everybody started to, you know, the entrepreneurial social media startup-y world, it overlaps a lot more than you think. You're really just 1 or 2 degrees of separation from everybody, and it's pretty wild to see who we've met. It's crazy community out
Who's
there.
the actor that they say like everyone is 6 degrees of separation from?
Is it Kevin Bacon? Is that
Kevin
who it is?
Bacon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
7 degrees of
just made me
separation.
think of
Specifically
that.
Kevin Bacon.
I think that's what it is. Like
Specifically
everybody's
Kevin. Why?
connected to him. Listen, man, pop culture. It's been crazy.
That's a crazy
So,
theory.
Aaron, I wanna ask you a little bit more about obviously going in full time onto a startup is a difficult decision to make, right? For anybody. You left the health benefits, the consistent paychecks, the team structure and safety of a big corporation, but you knew in your gut you wanted to tackle this problem and be an entrepreneur. I'm curious, what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced mentally when making that leap?
Yeah. Well, I'd always like wanted to be an entrepreneur. I said that in my interview at like going into EY. And I specifically remember when I was leaving that I was like talking to the same partner who was my like counseling connect group. I don't know if that's my circle leader. I was telling him that I was leaving, and he was like, "Oh, you're leaving?" And I was like, "I told you like 4 years ago that I was going to do this." And he was like, "Everybody says that, but nobody actually does it," which I thought was hilarious. But anyways, challenge was like, I've always known I wanted to do this, but like, when is the right time? Like, what's the right idea? So there was a lot of doubt because I'd had a ton of ideas, but it never felt like I should pursue it. But this one, I felt like was like really valuable in general. I felt like the problem was like growing. It was like becoming more and more of an issue, and I felt like it was feasible enough for me to like build a minimum viable product. It's like not crazy complicated to figure out what people have in common and then like connect them, and then also build like a network graph to understand the impact of those connections on a surface level. It's now quite complicated, but like just to build like the bare bones product, I was like, I can do that. I like have experience in consulting already. So that's how I rationalized it. But like the challenge of like, should I go for this? Was definitely there. I was like, I don't know if this is the right time. I don't know if this is the right idea. But I talked to another founder friend of mine, and he was like, you have to just like eventually try it. Like if you have the ability, like the financial ability to support yourself for a bit and try it and just find a company to test it with, you're gonna regret it if you don't.
I love asking people, like, what was the specific moment? Because there had to have been a day where you made that decision. Like, what was the feeling that was in your body as you were like, yep, I'm doing this?
I feel like there was two. Like the first was when I talked to that other founder friend. I didn't have the idea for Thread at the time. I was just like, dude, I really I want to be an entrepreneur. Like you did it. Like, how did you decide to leave your job and go do it? And it was really eye-opening for me to talk to him, because he was like, there's this conception that you need to have a job all the time that is like paying you and is like a 9 to 5. And that has to like be, there's no gap in the resume. Not that there would be a gap in the resume for like working on your own thing, but conventional wisdom says like kind of don't go for this. And he was like, but that doesn't make any sense. Like, if you want to get your job at EY back, you can, because you were good at your job at EY. Like, there's no reason to not try this unless you are dead set on like becoming a partner as fast as possible. And that really resonated with me. I felt like pretty energized by that. In the second moment, honestly, probably when I came up with the idea, I was like, I remember calling my friend. The idea started for summer camps. I was like, dude, this like summer camps, you've got all these kids who are isolated and they need support, and their counselors don't know that they're isolated until they like are crying and homesick, and they don't know which kids they should introduce them to who should be friends. I was like, they have all this data. I could figure this out and like support those kids. And I was so stoked about it. I called my friend who used to be a director of a camp. And he was really excited. I was just like buzzing about the idea. Ultimately, I decided summer camps don't really have any money and they're stuck in their own ways. So it's probably not as useful for them as it might be for businesses. But the idea, like the core of it, of like connecting based on shared interests, stayed.
Well, do we have an intro for you? One of our new elevators, he's combined summer camps with corporate retreats, and they're scaling like crazy, throwing corporate retreats all over the country. And it sounds like maybe this is a good activity to kick off their offsites for many of their big corporations.
That would be super fun. We've got this new thing for like in-person events where you can scan like a person's QR code name tag and see the interest that you have in common. You guys just see that?
I love that.
Yeah. Why did I get... Sorry, for folks that aren't watching on YouTube, there's this new feature that's happening. It's happened on my Teams calls and on my Zoom calls, where if you make a thumbs up in the camera, a little animated bubble or fireworks pop up around you. I think if you make a heart, it makes a heart too. But I don't know what program is doing it.
I think it might be like the Apple update or something.
Apple update.
Maybe it is the Apple update. Thanks a lot, Apple, freaking us out.
Anyways,
I was just rattled right now, by the way. Like, that was crazy. I'd never seen the fireworks before. How did you do that one? I got to show up tomorrow at that meeting and be like, shit, I'm holding the mic.
Oh, there you go, Parker.
Baby. Fireworks, man. That's the feeling I get like at camp. Just fireworks all the time. Just so excited. Life is great. Sam knows that. Fireworks at camp too are pretty awesome. Man, that's all. I love that you guys are also taking this in person too, rather than it being some like app or some plugin essentially that a company has or a tool. It's also like, hey, we're going to help you in person make these connections in real time, whether that's at a retreat, probably I assume like a summit or an event or some speaking, whatever, networking event, whatever. I think it's awesome. It's quick, it's fun, and I love it, every piece of it.
Yeah,
I want to tie thread back a little bit, Aaron. Our audience of Elevation Nation is many young adults, high school, college, and recent graduates who are just starting off in the real world in the 20s and 30s. And I'd love to get some thoughts from someone who built a company all around feeling fulfilled and finding that sense of belonging in the corporate world. It's one of the things I wish I had when I joined our large company was you go from having amazing friends in college, sometimes a fraternity, clubs you're in, whatever it may be, to this giant new world with a super diverse, not only array of people and skill sets, but also age groups, which makes things even a little stranger, right? Like, what adult wants to be my friend? My team is only people in their 40s, and I'm also traveling and eating all my meals with them and staying in hotels with them and stuck with them all week. Like, wow, I really have no friends. And so those were some of the thoughts that went through my head when I was starting this corporate consulting grind. And I know that that resonates for many young adults out there listening to this that are just starting their new job or new careers. So, as an expert in this space, Aaron, do you have any tips besides using Thread for these young adults so they can find that more meaningful connection and fulfillment in their corporate life?
Yeah. I mean, like ideally you set up this like your own sort of little thread experience where you're like networking yourself and you're reaching out to people and you're asking them what they're into and like doing that. That's really hard. And like 99% of people aren't going to be able to like put themselves out there in that way. That would be ideal. What's like a little simpler that you could kind of do every day would just be like being pretty intentional about the first few minutes of any like call or meeting that you're on, like not going on mute, not going off camera, asking like better questions than just like, what did you do over the holidays? Like, what trips do you have coming up? Is a good one because that can lead to stories. Yeah, like how do you spend your time? Like it can be like a little disarming and like can catch people off guard a bit, but I think like almost everyone reacts pretty well to that. And you do that and you can figure out like what you have in common that will definitely like create a bond way, way faster than you just like spending random time together.
And to summarize as an overall theme, it's something Parker and I have stressed the past 3 years on Elevation Nation, something that's helped us not only excel in our startup world with the new friends like Aaron that we've made, but also in our corporate world. Be a human being. There's a difference between being unprofessional and being human. And I think a lot of times young, new corporate recent grads think that you need to be robotic and you need to be buttoned up and you need to be polished in everything that you say. I challenge that wholeheartedly. And I actually do this too much, but I add a little bit of self-deprecation into almost all of my calls because it disarms myself, it disarms other people, it humanizes me for the mistakes that inevitably everyone is going to make, and it allows your clients and your coworkers to see you in a new light. And for folks trying to figure out what I'm actually saying there, I'll give you an example from a call literally today. I was on a call with my client. I was the one presenting, and I guess my screen froze and like no one could see my screen. And then my entire team's crashed. So I'm exiting out. I come back on and I'm like, hey, I'm back. Can you guys see me? And my client's like, no, you're frozen. And so the comment I made was, well, I hope I look good at least, right? Like, I hope I'm frozen in a good position. Like, I hope I don't look like some crazy face. Like, I'm whatever, like stupid dad joke, right? Made fun of myself, disarmed the situation, admitted that it was a little mistake, like no one cared, but it humanized me. And I just think that there are little moments in life, and it'll come with comfort as you get more comfortable in your job. But just remember, at the end of the day, everyone you work with is a human being. Even maybe the mean people, even your bosses, even the people you don't like, they all have passions, goals, hobbies, aspirations, and dreams. So try to find those. And I think that's a great way to build connection.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
It's so funny you brought that up because I literally had a conversation with someone else today about exactly that, Sam. Like, what's really great about bringing your full self to work is when you are able to act like yourself and joke and laugh. And, obviously there's a level of unprofessional that you know not to touch, but how about like professional is not buttoned up formal where you're robotic. Every word has to make sense. You're not laughing at straight face. Like we portray this in our head, especially in college too, because we think that the world works that way. And then you learn really quickly that the ones who I think really excel are the ones who, to your point, are real. Bring them best self to work and allow other people to be their best selves, and their best selves being, authentic.
Yeah, so it's bizarre the way that people act in the corporate world.
Yeah, it's funny. You see it all. I have one more question though, Aaron, before we go into our rapid fire section. So right now, obviously you're building Thread, you're out on the other side of the country from where Sam and I are. I know you're going skiing next week, which is sick. But I'm really curious, how are you approaching every single day to make sure that you are going to bed at night fulfilled with how you spent your time?
Ooh, big question. Hmm. I mean, that's really hard. Like lately, it's been tough to feel like I am like, you know, fulfilled and like making my way toward like my goals. It's really easy when you first like embark on a new journey because you're like, hell yeah, like I'm finally following my dreams. And then you're like doing it and you're like, the dreams are, not everything that they were made out to feel like. So it's like definitely a lot of ups and downs. Um, but lately I've been like trying to like remind myself of like why I'm doing what I'm doing and like why it's important to me and like what my like actual end goal is out of all this, and then being like, all right, Aaron, like if this is how you feel and you want to like succeed and like get this done, then like you need to like do the work. And so um lately it's been a lot of like pep talks for like the really like brutal manual parts of being a founder, like reaching out, prospecting, like trying to find leads, all that stuff. um And so like convincing myself to get that stuff done and like leaving myself time at the end of the day to like actually also do the things that I love with my friends has been really important. And giving myself like enough grace if I don't get like all of that done has been pretty key too, because when you're a founder and you're like building your own thing, there's a lot of like guilt when you don't have like a productive day or like you don't get everything done. Whereas like when I was on company time, I was like low key proud of myself for like scheming my way into an extra sick day or whatever. Um, yeah, it's different. I don't know if I answered your question.
I think you did. And I think
Cool.
it's thoughts that many people have. So thank you for being open and honest about those. Aaron, thank you for sharing so much about your story, so much about Thread and the benefits. I think a lot of what you talk about and a lot of what we shared today is going to help a ton of young adults. I want to move into our next section. This one's quick. We call it our rapid fire section. We just ask some fun questions. First thing that pops into your head. One I want to ask. I believe I know you're new to Seattle, but your hockey team was just in the Winter Classic. I don't know if you saw any clips from this, Aaron, but they were throwing fish across. Did you guys see this video? I don't know
I
if you
didn't
saw
see
this
this.
yet. So, for those that don't know, like Winter Classic, this special hockey game they played outside. The Seattle hockey team was walking out of the tunnel into this beautiful outdoor ice rink, and their intro, instead of like smoke or like sparklers, they had folks from, remind me the name of the fish market. I'm sorry, the one where they throw the
Pike
fish.
Place.
Thank you, Pike Place. Duh. They had folks like literally throwing fish over the hockey players' heads
Amazing.
as they walked out. I was like, that's so Seattle. I love it. So my question, not so rapid, is new to Seattle. What's your favorite spot there?
Oh, favorite spot, probably Seattle Fish Guys. Um, it's just like the most amazing poke and
Oh my
like
God.
fresh salmon I've ever had. So good.
Making me hungry. It sounds great. I've never been to Seattle. It's
Me
on my
neither,
list.
Parker. We
It
might have to
sounds
do a trip
incredible.
together.
I know, man. It sounds awesome. Okay, next rapid fire. What is a I'm not gonna say hobby. What is like part of your routine that you do every day or almost every day that people be like, huh? Like, I didn't know that about you.
A few years ago, I made a New Year's resolution to go outside every day, which is pretty much the only thing I do every day. I'm not a big routines person. So I don't think that's like very shocking, but that's about all I've got in terms of something that I actually do every
But you're
day.
intentionally like going outside. You're making it a goal that you're outside every day.
Got to be outside, especially in in a cloudy town. I need to be out
That's
there.
so true. Hey, Sam knows that my goals are more sunlight, more sleep, more exercise. And I
Love
know
it.
if I can do those three things, I'm going to be healthier. I'm going to feel better. And those are pretty simple things. Those are human things that we do, but we don't think about doing them enough. So I respect that, Aaron.
All right,
Thank
Aaron,
you.
our last rapid fire for you. Parker and I love to read. Do you have a book recommendation for us?
You ever heard of Mistborn?
No.
Do you like
I
fantasy?
love when we get new books. I need to get better with fiction, so this is perfect. It's
I
good.
got you. Mistborn is amazing. Did you ever read Harry Potter?
I did not. Okay, this is sad. I have no imagination. The last fiction book I read was Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and I loved it. Like I'm like reading nonfiction, not stop. Okay, Mistborn.
Mistborn's so good. It's
Joe
just
Johnson?
like Brandon Sanderson, I
No.
think.
Well, there's a lot of Mistborns.
Really?
Mist
Mistborn.
with a T.
Oh, with a
a
T. Oh,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Mistborn. No, I didn't enunciate. Like the most
Got it.
incredible world building. It's just like the action scenes are so good. Even if you're like not a big fiction person, it's still just like so fun to read. So you should be good.
And so you start with, I mean, it's called The Final Empire, even though it's the first one.
Oh, I think so. There's like the Well of
Okay.
Ascension is like the second one, and then
That's
the
the
third
second one.
It's a
Hero of
trilogy,
Age.
but
Okay.
you only have to read the first one. I mean, the trilogy is fire, but the first one just by itself is amazing.
I love it. Thank you. I love when we get unique books.
Yeah, me too. I'm
Like
pumping.
how
I
to
got
win
this-
friends and influence people. Everyone always
Oh,
tells us.
come
I get
on.
it. Like I've read it. All right.
Boo. All
Hey,
right,
I'm
this
reading
is
a
rapid
novel right
fire.
now that I got as a rec. Tomorrow,
I can't even
and
read that.
tomorrow,
I've heard
and
this is
tomorrow.
good. My
It's
roommate
pretty
just read that.
good. It's a novel about a guy and a girl who collaborate on creating like a video game that they like didn't, and it goes viral, and they end up like taking the world by storm. But there's also
Cool.
like a love story behind it, business story. About 100 pages in, Sam. Highly recommend too. And Aaron.
Proud
I
of
hear
you.
it's good.
There you go.
My roommate's a game designer, and he really liked that book. We had a New Year's party the other night, and someone was there early, and they were talking about it. And Ben, my roommate, was like, "Yeah, I love that book," and my other friend was like, "That book was horrible. Like that was one of the worst books I've ever read." He's like yelling at it from across the room. But everybody except for that person has told me that book's amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's been good
Sam,
so far. It's been good.
Correct from you, though.
Gosh. Okay. I have so many. I just looked. I think I had 16 books I read this year. My favorite author, his name is Michael Pollan. I don't know if you've read any of his. Okay. So I don't know what you would call like that type of book that he writes, but I think it's really cool that he just dives so deep into these random topics. So my dream job is Elevation Nation and Parker know is when I make my billions of dollars and don't have to work anymore, I want to go to culinary school and learn how to be like a classically trained chef. I don't want to actually work in a kitchen because after watching Bear, like I have nightmares, but I do want to know how to cook. So Pollan has this book called Cooked about 4 main ways that we have made food edible and how it evolved history over time. Super fascinating if you're into like culinary arts at all. I absolutely loved it.
I'll have to add that to my list. Is it also like the same as the Netflix 4 Foods thing? Like the salt, acid.
So that's also a really good book if you're looking for like actual cooking skills. This is more, Pollan talks about like how the concept of bread and us figuring out that we could make bread was able to help evolve human history because we were able to stretch grain further and fill more bellies. And then he goes to like this old school bread maker and learns like, about how to make bread the old-fashioned way and how like bread's nutrients have all been stripped now and none of the bread we eat is good for us and that's why we all have gluten intolerance and like it's things like that and how it evolved.
Cool.
I could actually talk for hours
Dude,
on that.
Michael Pollan is a legend.
Yeah,
He's so cool. Like, he's so cool. He just immerses himself in just everything.
Bread. Just
learns. Yeah, awesome author. I love that guy, too. I love that you say Pollan like you know him. Like,
I mean, I feel like it, too. I feel like he's my uncle
Pollan.
at this point. My guy.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right, well, let's go to our last section, Aaron, the most important section yet, our favorite section, and that is the mental motto. Sam and I believe that mental mottos are the key ingredient that help ground elevators to help them reach their goals in times when things are going really well, but more importantly, when times are not going well. And what's amazing about the mental motto is that hundreds of elevators have one. Sam and I have one. And Aaron, we want to hear your mental motto.
Yeah. My mental motto is be kind to yourself. Specifically, like, be as kind to yourself as you are to your friends and like to your loved ones. I think that like if I, let my internal like very critical voice win, then I would have given up on being a founder a long time ago. Like there's so many challenges and so many like hurdles and like, in all of life, but specifically in like this thing that I've kind of embarked on. And my first instinct is like, man, like you really fucked that one up. Like you could have done this, you could have done that. Like that was like, you missed it. But like if I tell my friend about like this deal that like fell through or whatever, they're like, dude, like you got so unlucky. Like that's such a bummer. And like you're amazing and like you've built something incredible and it'll work out. And so like trying to be as kind to myself as I am to my friends, as my friends are to me. Because if not, like it's just like impossible to be resilient enough to like succeed.
I think there's a deep lesson in that mental motto that all of us can take back. If you're listening to this, you are an elevator. You want the most out of life. You're trying to get a little bit better each and every day. And that comes with a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves. So be kind to yourself. Remember to make connections with people in work, outside of work. Be a human and tell your company to use Thread and we'll hook you up. We know a guy. Aaron, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining us as the latest elevator in Elevation Nation. 152, I believe, is the number. I don't know why I said 42. We're way further along. 152. It's been an honor, man. Welcome to the nation. We're glad to have you.
Thank you. 152 is so many. Congrats, guys.
Thank
152.
You.
52 is a great number, right, Sammy? Go Ravens.
Yeah, I know. Big Ravens guy. We get it.
Love it. Aaron, you're the man. I mean, honestly, it goes without saying, like, I am inspired by you. I'm inspired by what you're doing, not only because you're building a really cool product, but you're also on a journey that I see myself on as well in some weird way, shape, or form, like consulting and then eventually doing your own thing. And yeah. I think, you're in a time probably in your life, beyond our conversation, like where things are really hard and you get the wins and then you got to keep grinding. But like, I know that it seems like you have something amazing that you're passionate about. And man, that's freaking cool. And that's a cool feeling, especially, when you're grinding at something that, you love with your whole heart, and to do it with someone else too. So I appreciate you spending time with us. And I cannot wait to root you on. You'll see us on the sidelines pumping
Sam
Thread up and you up and everything. So yeah,
got
just
my
thank
elevators on the sidelines.
Amen.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
All right, Elevation
Sam,
Nation. Until next week.
To see how much you guys grow.
Thank you.
Sorry, Sam.
Oh, you're good.